Hi everyone, today we'll be talking about inflation on businesses and consumers. There we go. So what is inflation? Well, there are two definitions of inflation in classical economics. The first definition is a rise in the supply of money, and the second definition is the rise in the supply of money is higher than the rise in the production of services or goods. Many people believe the general definition to be a rise in prices. That's what I originally thought until I researched more on it. Since 2021, inflation has increased significantly, is still on the rise. So in September 2022, inflation rose to 8.2%, which is the highest it's been in 40 years. Inflation increased rapidly after COVID-19 and has affected consumers' lives daily. Because inflation fluctuates, it increases the volatility in consumer spending and investment in many countries. And there are two metrics for inflation: headline inflation and core inflation. Headline inflation is the change in price of goods and services. Core inflation excludes volatile components such as food and energy to shed light on a trend in prices. So why is inflation high? Well, there's two main reasons of the increase. There's demand pull and cost push. So demand pull is an unexpected increase in aggregate demand, and cost push an overall price increase on supply. Cost push inflation affects the labor market equilibrium. And then on the one hand, expansionary monetary and fiscal policies implemented at the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic put upward pressure on aggregate demand, stated by Jerome and others on page 12 of one of the articles I researched. So what is being affected? Well, housing, labor, food, and financial markets are being affected. For housing, there's been a rise in the prices for housing. That impacts household well-being and home affordability. Consumer Price Index, or CPI, measures the cost of the market. 40% of the market comes from the prices of housing, and this includes rented and owned houses. The rise in cost of rent and purchasing a house can affect overall inflation. After COVID-19, there was a big increase on the cost of houses due to demand of growth and supply constraints. In October 2022, home buyers spent 77% more on mortgage loans per month than in 2021. So the median price for a house is $425,000 today with a down payment of 10%. As for labor, high inflation, low employment. The CPI for food has increased to over 6%, which is the highest it's been since 2008. In 2023, the unemployment rate is 3.9% and inflation rate is approximately 3%. Domash and Summers have a prediction that there will be a higher wage inflation in 2024. As for food, the average price of food has increased. Food purchases are 12% of consumer expenditures, and many economists understand why the price of food has increased. So the price of food has increased due to supply shocks, increasing goods and services, and public spending. As for financial markets, the growth rate for production in 2022 was approximately 5%, and the yearly growth in the S&P 500 was approximately 13%. The S&P 500 is the top 500 companies in the United States. The pros and cons of inflation. So the pros are the government wants inflation to be CPI 2%. So that's adjustment of wages and adjustment of prices. So CPI of 2% is like moderate, so it's pretty good. Inflation is better than deflation. Moderate inflation rates are healthy for the economy. So back to point 2, deflation can cause recession, and recession is a decrease in economic activity. It can cause businesses to struggle with profits, and it can cause unemployment. As for cons, people do not want to invest in inflation rates if they are high. Lower international competition causes income to decline, can reduce savings value, reduce the value of government bonds. If inflation gets too high, it can destroy an economy, and the cost of reducing inflation. High inflation can take out middle class savings. So next, how does it affect businesses? Well, many businesses have struggled due to inflation. Prices, they've had to increase them. They've also had a decrease in sales because the prices of their products have increased. And many businesses are having issues with hiring. People don't want to work, or there's just unemployment issues. Supply chains have significantly impacted businesses as well. So, this is going to be a video on a business owner who has struggled during inflation.
Well, many small businesses are feeling the squeeze and struggling to recover from the pandemic.
Some owners tell CBS 2's Meg Baker how soaring inflation impacts how they do business. The owner of R's Coffee Roastery in Westfield, New Jersey, says he's been watching his wallet as the price of certain goods rise.
Milk prices have gone up considerably. Last February, a gallon of whole milk was $3.35 a gallon. Now it's $4.09 a gallon.
He says the cost of cups has risen too.
I hope customers understand, when suddenly it's, 25 cents more for, a cup of coffee or for a latte.
Al Lord, a financial expert, says inflation, labor shortages, and supply chain issues are causing major challenges for businesses and consumers.
Well, it looks like everything has gone up across the board, the highest being a 40% annual increase in used cars, but it's everything from furniture to food to energy.
Small businesses were hit hard by the pandemic. How does this play out for them?
It's very painful for small businesses. It's just one more nail in the coffin as they try to recover here. Prices keep going up, and it's very hard to pass all the costs on to consumers.
It's just sad to see these businesses struggling with inflation.
Labor Department says
Sorry. There we go. How can businesses overcome inflation? So businesses need to look at where they're making money, so the products they make most money on they need to keep. And then on the products they're not making as much money on, they need to get rid of. Small business owners may need to work more during hours of operation because people aren't working as often or they can't find someone to work. And then they got to control their spending because it's super easy to overspend on inventory. How does it affect consumers? Well, approximately 8 in 10 consumers are rethinking or reducing the amount of money they spend on products. They've switched to buying cheaper products, so the consumers who used to buy the name brand stuff, they don't anymore. They buy the cheaper stuff since inflation's gone up so much. They also do not eat at restaurants as often because you buy your groceries and then going out to eat is just an extra cost, so they cut that down. They also discontinue memberships, so this can include like gym memberships or like Netflix, stuff like that. How is the government approaching inflation? So President Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act on August 16, 2022. This act will lower costs for families, lower emissions, and lower debts and deficits. The Senator of Louisiana, John Kennedy, stated the government talks about Federal Reserve when inflation gets high. The Federal Reserve lowers prices but raises interest, and it also causes an increase in unemployment. The Senator of New York, Chuck Schumer, is for the Reduction Act. Senator Chuck Schumer states that the Reduction Act won't increase taxes for households that make less than $400,000 a year. And according to The Pros and Inflation by Murray and others, they state that the bipartisan group wrote that the Inflation Reduction Act will help increase American competitiveness, address our climate crisis, lower costs for families, and fight inflation. And this should be passed immediately in Congress. Here's a little video on how government's been taking action for inflation.
This week, President Joe Biden and the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, will be attending the 9th Summit of the Americans in Los Angeles, an event that brings together government officials worldwide among the issues on the agenda: economic prosperity. That's an issue that the White House is also placing high on its own to-do list. President Joe Biden says the U.S. ready for a new phase of stable, steady growth coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Although the Labor Department says the country added 390,000 jobs in May and the unemployment rate held steady at 3.6%, not everyone sees the economic glass as half full.
That hurricane is right out there down the road coming our way. We just don't know if it's a minor one or Superstorm Sandy.
With the 2022 midterm elections about 5 months away, White House officials say they are focused on helping Americans as they pay more for many items.
We have a strong economy now. People are working. Inflation's a problem. I will grant you that, and we will get it under control because we're going to stick with it until we do.
And that's how the government is.
Transportation Secretary
taking care of it. For some reason I can't. Oops, there you go. Why is inflation important? Well, it affects your day-to-day life, so like your house payment, or even buying a house, or car payment, or buying a car, purchasing your groceries, or getting gas for your car. It does affect all of these things, so like I said, it affects your day-to-day life. It also affects our economy, and our economy helps us understand the world around us and affects our personal and professional lives. So I believe that is it for my presentation. Thank you so much for listening and watching.